And a warm welcome to all our viewers this afternoon to Wild Earth Live at the Waterhole, where we are starting off with quite an abundant spectacle of impala and warthog. What a beautiful, beautiful sight. Nice and relaxing. I can see some impalas laying down. My name is Japie Potgieter, and I'll be your naturalist this afternoon. We're starting off at Nkoro in the Sabi Sands in South Africa's greater Kruger Park area. Now what a relaxing sight. I can see only some bare patches right next to the water's edge and a little bit of grass growing there. The tougher grasses obviously getting utilized there by the younger warthogs. You can see they're down on their wrists, using their strong neck muscles to loosen up. Now, I would like to remind our viewers that this is a live and interactive show this afternoon, and you can join the conversation on X using #WildEarth, or you can scan the QR code there at the bottom right of the screen. You can also send some questions through to wildearth.tv/questions. And you can also join us on the YouTube channel. Penelope Kenyon. Haven't heard from you in a while. Very good to hear from you. And thank you. You're saying hello to Nadine, to Japie and waterholers. Enjoy the wonderful sights. Thank you so much. Indeed we will. And then Catherine is also saying hi Nadine and Japie. So thank you very, very much for that. We really appreciate the good wishes. And I'm sure it'll flow into this afternoon's progression of events. Now there, right at the back, we can see there's a young impala, and he was pushing his mother around a little bit to try and get some milk from her. It's quite interesting at this stage of the game. I've seen there is quite a few of the younger impalas that I've seen, at least in the area that I'm based, that's still around. The herds are looking good. The young are growing up, and they are actually starting to reach that point where we can see the horns clearly in the males, and they're a little bit faster, a little bit sturdier on the legs. But especially midway through January and towards the end, started seeing a few late ones, one or two little ones that got born quite late. Probably conceived towards the end of the rutting season of last year. Those little ones do stand out quite a little bit. So quite a sight to see here and there, how quickly these little things grow up. And have a look at that female. She looks almost pregnant. You can see there's a little one laying down chewing the cud. So let's see if we can see some little horns there. I believe I am seeing two little spikes right at the top of the head. Unless I'm imagining something. Oh, and something gave him a fright. You can see, I was just talking about it, but they're quite agile, quite up and moving. Ari, a very good good afternoon from our side, and morning by you, but a good afternoon there to you in Amersfoort in the Netherlands. I hope you enjoy the show this afternoon. Lenny, you are saying the Torchwood Pride was here earlier. So I have heard, I've been updated and told that they were here a little earlier, much earlier from what I heard. And it would have been indeed quite the sight to have some lions around. But I'm sure if they were around here, we would not have had these guys around. Especially not in the numbers that they are here. They tend to vacate the premises as soon as the lion moves into the area. But with good visibility, as we can see around here, I'm pretty sure they might have just kept their distance towards the edge of the clearing, or at a distance from the lions, but you do sometimes see that they're still in and around an area, as long as there's sufficient space to use their excellent eyesight and their speed. Harriet Hodgkin, hello to you too, and you're saying hello to FC as well as all the Wild Earth chatters from a very sunny Cape Town. I'm very, very happy to hear that. We've got a beautiful sunny afternoon here in the Lowveld, in the Western Lowveld, and the Central Western Lowveld. And it's funny, I always used to, whenever I chat to my parents back home who lives in the Western Cape, the weather is always one of the things that come up, and we always talk about like when the wind blows that side, we'll receive our rain this side a few days later. But it looks like both areas can have a very beautiful day, as we can see there. A little bit of cloud in the sky, but not too much. Oh, and there we have a wildebeest. A lone wildebeest. What a perfect spot. Right underneath a beautifully big marula tree. And that's a perfect spot. Yo. A few impalas cashing in on the shade there as well. But I think the wildebeest has probably had a good session of feeding up until probably not too long ago. But that little bit of cloud cover, even though it doesn't look like much, it's still there to sorry, I went quiet there for a moment. I was just trying to focus on what that was. As the camera zoomed in, I was suspecting something else, maybe the dangling leg of one of the impala standing underneath. That would have been quite the surprise. Indeed. You can see those impalas laying down there in the shade. So if they were a leopard in that tree, they were definitely unaware, which would have made for even more exciting, suspenseful moments. But just have a look at all of these impala. Yo, there's a lot of them. I do wonder how many. I'd say there's probably at least 50 to 60 of them. You can see some of them starting to utilize the shade, others just laying flat down in the grass. One standing, chewing the cud. And this is about as relaxed as they can get. I think this is about as relaxed as an impala herd this size can be. In fact, I think the size of it is very much a part of the reason why they are. But seeing this impala standing this close to the water, I heard that there is an elephant up close at Elephant Pan. So I think we should wander over there and go have a look. And amazing, just look at all the water at Elephant Pan. Now, if I remember correctly, the last time I saw this area, it was definitely nothing close to this beautiful sparkling oasis amongst the Mopani trees. It was more of a dry dust pan. So have a look at that, quite interesting. It might just be the angle of the camera. And as soon as the other elephant stepped in, it looked like the one on the left, which to me seems slightly larger. Just backed off, kind of in anticipation of a more robust greeting. Maybe these two have been having some interaction this morning. If they had, it seems like the one moving off certainly does not want to continue. Now this is quite interesting. We can see the little pan structure there where the water's flowing out, but this is such an incredibly beautiful area. You can see that beautiful reflection of the trees and the tall trees in the sky in the water. And this must be a true oasis to animals like these wandering elephant bulls. And have a look. Looks like he's just squirting some water in on the side of his tusks. Now I've noticed often in the past, elephants with shorter tusks like this, they often do tend to get more plant material and dirt stuck in there, but at the same time, whether they broke it or whatever happened, it's not always a complete disadvantage. They still have their powerful bulk that they can put behind it, and they can still use those tusks, especially when competing for mating rights. Often it makes them a little bit more maneuverable up close. They do have their wrestle and stab type of approach when they fight. And it might aid it, and maybe that might in part be why the other elephant moved off. What a spectacular sight. Now, Mopani woodland, Mopani is the taller trees we can see around here. Very, very green after the rains come. Very beautiful in my opinion. Often in areas it's heavy Mopani and more alkaline soils, you find that they provide very little shade cover. Even though they form and grow in the form of a forest, it's very little shade, and they do indeed seem to provide a little bit here, even if it is only a little bit. You can see that elephant there on the water's edge at the back, using it quite effectively. But what an amazing pan this is. You can see the one elephant doesn't seem too keen for any further interaction, and even though these two might be wandering together and spending time together in an area, there's still always a small matter of competition between these animals for various reasons, and because of that we do find those slightly more irritating characters. I can see what seems to be also a secretion from this bull's temporal gland just behind its left ear. Now, I didn't notice otherwise, but it is possible that he might be in must, or either going in or coming out of, and in that case the other one would move away. But what a spectacular sight. Good to check in here at the Elephant Pan. As these two move off into the Mopani wilderness, we're going to head over to Oldonyo, where we've got another spectacular view of an elephant. And indeed a spectacular view. Looks like this elephant is much more relaxed, less pestered by other elephant characters around the water. I'm calling them characters, they are such interesting creatures, and one of the creatures where individual personalities certainly shine through quite clearly. I guess it might also just be extremely hot here at Oldonyo. It looks very, very hot, and that's why he's lazily spraying some water over himself. And see, perfect method, side, side, middle, side, middle, side. And of course trying to get the back, the flanks, the belly, and that way cover that very thick wrinkly skin properly, and the water can seep into those huge folds where it'll be hidden away from the sun's warm rays a little bit longer to try and effectively cool the elephant down through movement, through the breeze. So Spaz Iankov, you were asking, first you were saying that it was great to see the elephants at the Elephant Pan, and you were asking how big the elephants usually are there. Now, personally, I don't have any personal experience that I can say I've been at an elephant weighing in that area or nearby, but I do know that Botswana is known for very large elephant bulls, even though sometimes some of the areas in Botswana, due to a lack of phosphorus in the soil, tend to have smaller tusks. At least I know that's one of the theories, or at least it was. The theories tend to change quite a lot, and there's so many different environmental factors playing in on things like that over the long term that creates a certain evolved genetic pool within certain regions that does produce certain characteristics that can directly be related to the availability of certain nutrients and minerals. But on more general terms, large elephant bulls like this one, what a beautiful specimen, casually strolling off. Have a look at all the insects and things flying around, especially near the feet and the trunk as he's moving off. I think he's going to head straight towards the shade. Kind of have the same idea as that giraffe there at the back. But having said that, very large elephant bulls can reach about 6 tons or more, in some cases even as much as 10, which is a massive animal. And big bulls in their prime, usually they'll be more than 5 tons, close to 6. A towering animal, towering over the smaller shrubs and trees even. And certainly that elephant looks like he's adamant to get somewhere, unlike this giraffe. Talking about towering, looks like a bull giraffe. I wouldn't say a young one either. Maybe not ancient, but not sure exactly how old. I can see some oxpeckers near the hump at the base of the neck, but it just goes to show how perspective can mess with one's eyes often. That means that that thorn tree that it's standing underneath must be pretty tall. You can see it's just at the top of the head. Almost looks like his head is going through the branches of some of these thorn branches of this tree. And I think I can see what looks like a third bump on the forehead of this animal, just above the eyes. Something often noticed on these Maasai giraffe. You can see that moment's pause of the bottom jaw. That was just the giraffe regurgitating the bolus of cud that it's chewing. And just moving its head from side to side, still being able to scan the area. Bill, you were saying that 1 ton was in the cam earlier. That is pretty exciting. I think I've only had a number of times seeing him. A number meaning maybe 2 or 3. I would love to see more of him. Talking about characters earlier, that's one indeed. At least from what I've heard, most of the sightings I have had of him has been rather civilized. Spaz Yankov, you are asking what the record of a tusker in Botswana and Kenya is. That is a very good question. I do not know, and it's something that I'll have to check in. I'm sure as a lot of these records go, there would be quite a number of conditions and determining factors that would play in on that. under the circumstances, more circumstantial factors, I guess, in determining who is the biggest or what was the biggest. I know a few years back there was an elephant that was weighed somewhere in Angola that was over 10 tons, I believe, and at the time that was considered the biggest elephant. I know also that there are some elephants in areas in Kenya and Tanzania that they reckon might be close to that size. And sometimes elephant bulls with big tusks are monitored quite carefully and constantly wherever possible. Ooh, what a sight. That's a really cool camera angle there. Measuring a giraffe against the one in the distance. I wonder if he steps 2 steps forward, we'll have a view through the legs of the giraffe of another giraffe. Well, that would make my day. Oh, there we go. It was brief. Brief but beautiful. For a moment there, as that giraffe was stopping there, you could see the skin on the legs twitching. Probably because of all the biting flies. And they tend to have that twitch on the skin to try and aid them with removing whatever excess insects or flying insects might be perching on their legs at any time. Can't always reach those areas. So, as this giraffe is standing around deciding whether she wants to drink or not, I am sure we might see more giraffe around Old Donya. So I think what we're going to do is head over to Tau, where there's just been some springbok and more elephants spotted. Beautiful. What a beautiful little antelope. You can see lots of little butterflies moving around. And this is spectacular. Greenery here, Tau and Madikwe. And there's a harida and some weavers. Quite the group. They look like they're on a mission, and I am dead sure they're going to head down to the watering hole. You can see that one's even trying to get ahead there. Jump his position, but they look dead set on going for a drink. And I can imagine chewing some of the rougher, drier plants further away from the water. These springbok are indeed in need of a drink of water. Now, I got a question earlier from Catherine, or a comment rather, saying that that elephant's ear was very, very tacky and taddy. Now, what's interesting with that, and I know I mentioned on the elephant tusks and the big elephants in Kenya, like some of these animals are carefully monitored to make sure, and they don't actually have, a lot of them, they leave them because they're wild animals, so they don't actually know exactly how heavy they are or what their sizes are, and they do these estimates from a distance, more from monitoring it from a distance, which would mean and entail that they respect the animals' wild nature and space, and as time goes along, of course, they make sure that if there is a magnificent animal like that, when the time does come when it becomes more vulnerable, it's always good to keep an eye on it. And one of the ways they would monitor these animals and make sure that it's the right one that they're looking for is those unique marks that each elephant get from their tacky ears, and when they move through the bush they often cut and hook their ears, and it becomes a little bit worn along the edges, and those unique marks and ear imprints, so to speak, is often one of the main characteristics used to identify individuals. And of course, if they have big tusks, then it's also easy. But what a beautiful sight here at Tau. You can see those zebra just standing there casually out in the sun, feeding a bit. I'm sure they're enjoying a bit of the breeze that's there. And some big impala rams in the foreground. Not often that you get to see impala and springbuck in the same sighting. That was quite unique. I don't recall myself ever seeing that actually. So definitely a first for me. Two very differently adapted animals. But in some unique areas, like here at Madikwe, we do have overlapping habitat types, which would be able to support both species. And like in South Africa's northwestern part, up until the right northern part, that's where we have these very, very unique overlapping landscapes that often provide the right habitats for certain species that generally do not co-occur in other areas. And of course Madikwe is one of these very, very unique areas, and quite beautifully green currently. Just have a look. Zebras casually feeding through. Every now and again one picks up its head to have a look, but kind of get the same feeling I got this as we started this afternoon with the impalas and the warthog and the Sabi sand. It all seemed like quite a casual open space. Okay, I heard there's a lion at Nkoro, so we're going to head over there. Amazing, have a look at that. I'm pretty sure he, besides spooking all the impala, there we go, Look at his tail tip carefully. Notice the tail tip of this lion moving. He seems quite daft walking straight up to them. Maybe these impala, this is extremely close. This is quite unusual. They must know something the lion doesn't. Now, judging from the size, especially with the impala being a little bit further back, I would say this looks like a young lion, which would also explain this extremely overconfident behavior. However, having said that, I have also witnessed this behavior actually play in the favor for the lion before, but this is something quite unusual. Amazing to see though. You can see a little bit unsurety there, carefully contemplating the situation, the head moving side to side to scope the area out and weigh up its options, and of course the tail being the one telling us that there's a thought process going on there. Yes, lions does have a very careful thought process that they run through. Even inexperienced young male lions. Penelope Kenyon, you're saying, oh my, that's a wonderful sight for the show. I agree, this is epic. In fact, if we do see any sort of attempt here, this will definitely be my first on the show. And even though it's not quite there where there's explosive action, this is a slow action of attempt. This lion has definitely got one thing on its mind here, and I think all of those staring eyes know that very, very well. Joan Miller, wow, a lion. Awesome stuff. Indeed, I agree. This is some good stuff here. This is why I like young cats. Always quite brave or daft. Catherine, it's Catter Day. Indeed, it's Catter Day. Catter Day, and right in front of a wall of impala. The impala is almost reluctant to leave the clearing, but just to get back to the fact that even though this lion does seem a little bit daft, now I'm not too sure. It looks like it might be a young male lion. Now I'm not 100% sure, but it looks like I see some longer fur there on the chest. And in this case, sometimes daft behavior like this is not quite as daft as it might seem, taking into account that there might be a group around. And all this lion could be doing, knowing very well that they'll get spotted out in a large open area like this, which is why these impalas would be spending time out here, and probably why they were so relaxed earlier. The sheer amount of other impalas would heighten their chances of spotting any potential danger like this cat as it comes out of the shadows. And in that case, this lion very likely could be a distraction, with the rest of the pride members moving around, maybe setting a trap in motion. But then again, also it's the middle of the day, so it might also have been a desperate attempt to try its luck. Catherine, I see you saying the lion wants to be friends. Well, Looks to me like the impalas didn't want to be friend. So this is quite interesting. I can see the wildebeest off to the left there. Now, the tree behind the lion on the right, where the shade is, that's where that wildebeest and some of the impalas were standing under a little bit earlier when we were talking about the peaceful scene. So it goes to show even the wildebeest haven't run too far, and maybe they were quite aware of the situation. It's amazing how animals know the behavior of other animals. Something piqued its interest. Its head's lower down, so let's have a look. A scent of something. And indeed, it does look like a younger male lion. And I really hope that he's going to come down towards the water's edge. Leave it wild. You asking if it's a younger lion. I do indeed think so. I thought for a moment there when it turned earlier, it was easier to establish that it might be a young male. I'm still going to reserve my definite comment on that, but it might be. Canine girl, you came at right at the right time, for sure. It is a lion just about to get to the water's edge after being the ultimate irritation to the impalas. There we go. You can see a little bit of longer fur running down the throat onto the chest. Now all of this biting at random sticks. The very brazen attempt at the impalas all indicates to a young male lion. Definitely not always the most elegant of the bunch, but certainly provides high quality entertainment and excellent game viewing. Have a look at him. He's just gone onto what looks like a game trail. He looks in good nick, so I don't think he's too desperate. Here we go, another one. That is amazing. And by the looks of it, also a younger male. That is spectacular. 2 lions. And Coral Bush Lodge is definitely providing the goods this afternoon. That's for sure. Giraffe Girl at Giraffe Girl 68. I'm seeing you saying that this is definitely one of the young Torchwood boys. I'm very happy to hear that. Here we go. Let's see. Is he going to be the smarter one? And go to the water. Or might he follow in the footsteps of what I suppose is his brother or half brother? Eleanor McMahon, you are saying that that lion might have been waiting for its pride that we couldn't see hunting. That is a very good observation, and indeed so. With young male lions, we do tend to find that they sometimes take these unnecessary chances and use them as learning opportunities, no matter how daft and brazen they might be, or futile. Ultimately, it's still excellent learning opportunities at the end of the day. Like that lion would learn a lot from that. So have a look. He's carefully studying the situation, and even though he might know very clearly at this point that nothing would come of it, it's still worth it to study it. There's a lot that can be picked up. You can see the ears are focused forward. There's black markings behind the ears there, and the white tip. That's what, if they cooperate and they're in the long grass, those are the little things that the rest of the pride members might be looking out for. Informs them of the position of the others. The so-called follow me signs, as they are called by some. This lion's definitely gaining some good behavioral insights here. I think it realized that this area is just a little bit too open. There is no viable approach towards those animals without them seeing and fleeing. Catherine, that was indeed a beautiful view of lion and impala interaction. That was spectacular. It was so good to see. I think what is the most amazing for me is I think all of this that we've been discussing now about like whether it's a young male lion or what it is, I think the impalas pretty much summed that up quite quickly and knew exactly, and that's probably what gave us the opportunity to get to see these guys so close to each other. You can see the two there. Well, the one popped out. Here comes the other one. Eleanor McMahon, you saying that he looks very healthy. Both of them do indeed. I think the second one that we only saw later looked slightly more bulky than the other one. And indeed, Catherine, as you're saying, they do have quite solid muscles. Even at this age, a cat like this is extremely powerful. And even though they might not quite have the know-how and tactfulness to pull off the majestic hunts as their mothers might have, it certainly doesn't make them any lesser of a lion. They still have incredible brute strength. And you know what they say about brute strength and brute stupidity. And that was a spectacular sight. Yes, Eleanor, there is not much cover for them. Like we can see, that's the type of cover that they need, that they've just disappeared into. Now, it would be interesting to see. I can see some movement there. It's every chance, every possibility that they might go and lay flat down there in the shade and wait their chance again. I mean, there's water here. There's a potential of a chance later. And at this time of the day, I don't think they really have anywhere else that they need to go to. Harry Lolly, you are saying it's scatter day on hashtag live at the waterholes, hashtag wild earth. Indeed it is. What a beautiful sighting. What a lucky sighting for us. That was some excellent guidance there from FC. So a huge shout out to them, quickly informing me that we need to head over there. Canine Girl, you saying that you thought it might be two young male subadults. That's what it looks to me like. And that would confirm that it is from the Torchwood group of lions. And you're saying that they're stunning boys and you can never get enough of the lions. I agree. Lions, definitely one of my favorite, if not my favorite. Lions, hyenas, and the black rhino. I'm fascinated by those three species. You can be sure that wherever you have a large predator that operates as a group or as a member of a group, it always provides very good opportunities. And seems like life's returned back to normal. Might seem quite odd. They don't seem too bothered. You can see, okay, well, they're all up. They're not laying back down in the grass like they were before. But doesn't seem too much of a bother. If anything, the lion just kind of helped prompt them to make the decision to move into the shade. Although, saw that little twitch there. They're not completely relaxed. There's definitely a slight air of excitement and nervousness there. I think maybe a little bit of heightened awareness. But if we think about it from these guys' point of view, from that wildebeest, that looks like a seasoned wildebeest, quite mature, very, very big bull, arguably been around for quite a long time. Nearby, holding his patch somewhere nearby. So he must be quite experienced in dodging lion attacks and surviving the onslaught of the predators at points. And I find that quite fascinating. If you think about the way that the animals might have thought about that, they summed that situation up quite quickly. Or maybe it's from recent experiences that I didn't get to see. They know that there's young lions around, they know what they're capable of. Can't ignore them, but also maybe not worth it wasting the energy to move off completely, or rather just keep a distance between them. But and then again, there's also every chance that the unsurety, knowing that there might have been more, could have provided them with the insights. So that was a spectacular sighting. It looks like, I think for now we might have a few quiet minutes. So I think what we'll do is we're going to head back to Old Donyo, where we had some good giraffe action earlier, to see what the giraffes are up to. Ooh, and indeed we have some good giraffe action here. Yo. 12 giraffes. 12 giraffes. Have a look at that. The big bull giraffe just inspecting that female. I saw at the back there were two younger ones swinging their heads at each other. There's another one, another two swinging their heads. This is like a giraffe hub. It looks like it's the perfect meeting point here. You see they're all standing around, staring into the distance. Classical giraffe behavior. And they must have a little bit of an elevated position here. So let's see who comes down to drink. They also seem a little bit on edge or unsure. And what I find here, Del Doño, is it's often between the giraffes and the elephants. And let's see how many giraffes we can get drinking from this pan all at once. Yo, that is quite the sight. You can see they're slightly more comfortable. Once there's one or two nearby, then you often find that the rest come. But it looks like there is a few males in and amongst here. Also some females, so there is every reason for some of these boys to try and show off. Which is quite good. Now, while we have these giraffes here, I noticed a question earlier from Spasi Yankov saying that it's such beautiful Maasai giraffe, and indeed they are. Look a little bit different than the southern giraffe. I find giraffe fascinating. I think they're very beautiful. There are some physical characteristics that look, oof, this looks like a beautiful big male giraffe coming in here to the water. You can see head down, straight towards investigating the females. So let's see what's happening. This is always interesting. This is where bull giraffes might become a little bit jealous, but it might also just be curiosity. But to get back to Spaz's question, is you ask if I read about the 4 different species that recent research has produced. So indeed I have, and it's quite interesting because it's been giraffe classification and species diversification has been a topic of discussion for quite a long time, and it's also been suggested for quite a long time that there is 4 different species, and I think with the recent paper published they used the measurements of the skulls of giraffes, if I'm not mistaken, to try and determine certain set differences between the different species, in which case it came down to establishing and agreeing upon the fact that there are 4 different giraffe species. Now of course these things are also probably coupled with a number of other factors like DNA sequencing and a whole bunch of other things. The giraffes is definitely a very interesting animal. Also an animal that for a long time didn't get, even though they're considered by everybody to be a classical, almost an iconic animal to see out in safari in Africa. Funny thinking about the fact that the word safari in itself comes from the Arabic safar, meaning to travel or to journey, as some translations puts it. And a moving group of giraffes, often referred to as a journey, which would be the collective noun for giraffes, a journey of giraffe. So pretty much essential to the wish list for the African safari goer, for the first time or not. Whenever I go to any area to go on safari, I do enjoy seeing giraffe always. I particularly like the small babies and the large males. Small baby giraffe is very, very beautiful. There's another giraffe coming from the back. What a incredible sight. This is quite a lot of giraffe packed around this little pan. So let's see if one of the others, so now we're on, there's 3 drinking currently. Earlier on I asked, let's see how many giraffe we can get to come and drink. You can see usually once they're done drinking, they lick whatever moisture is still on the lips off. And there's nine giraffe currently, 10 giraffe currently I can see, no, 11. There's 2 at the back still going. 12 giraffe, that's an amazing amount of giraffe. And I can see some elephant emerging from the bush in the back. So I'm assuming these giraffe are all well aware that they need to take their chance now. But this is spectacular. Interesting to note the various size differences in these giraffes. Some of it got to do with age, but also between the male and female. Here comes, I thought it was more elephants at first, but it looks like it's only one. Oh no, it's 2, there we go. One in front seems like quite a large elephant bull. You can see now they are moving away, making space. Now we can see some oxpeckers utilizing this chance as the giraffe is drinking to get onto the face and above the eyes. See how long the giraffe can tolerate. This looks like a very thirsty giraffe. Young male can just see some of the fur at the top of the horn starting to disappear, still dark in the face. So the horns, otherwise known as ossicones or ossicles, they get to form after quite a long time and are quite relevant in aging giraffes in a way. And also as time goes along they play a role. Oh, on second thought now, it does not look like a male giraffe, it actually looks like a female. My bad. She did lose some fur at the top of her ossicones. Interesting. Making way for the gentle giants. This is quite interesting. I believe we've seen these two gentlemen around this watering hole yesterday. Good to see them back. Need to cool off. Indeed, you can see they go for those soft areas right behind the ears first. Cover those areas well. The back, the shoulders, the neck. Quite an abrupt ending. Maybe they're just shifting around to come and drink from a less disturbed area. Definitely an interesting relationship between these two. The one there in the back with the slightly straighted tusks definitely regards this one with a bit of respect. It seems like. Have a look. Just investigating the edge of the pan. Canine girl, you are asking if giraffe, when they are in large groups, have a hierarchy. Indeed they do, actually. Giraffes were always just thought to have quite loose associations or aggregations where they just move between one herd to another, but they actually do have a bit of a hierarchy. Some of the older females ranking higher than some of the younger ones. And then there's also a definite hierarchy amongst the males, which they establish through their necking practices, play fighting from a young age. And within the traveling groups of bachelors, you'll often find that they do try and establish those hierarchies. If it gets to such a situation where they are very closely matched, or you have an older one that doesn't want to back off, then occasionally you'll get serious fights, but normally like those hierarchies are actually quite well established. And what we see when they neck each other, and it's mainly a ritual in the sense that they use it kind of as sparring. practice. Having said that, for any of you that ever did some boxing training, sparring can be quite sore. Have a look. Lone giraffes standing around, carefully inspecting before coming down. Very, very eagerly awaited her turn, patiently to come down. But this has been spectacular. I think while this giraffe is moving over to the water, why don't we go see what's happening at Tau again? And we have a face-off between a single impala and a herd of elephants. No, I'm joking. Even though it looks like this daft impala had the same intentions as that young male lion earlier with the impala, I think he was facing some tougher odds in this case. Interesting how angles can play with our eyes, but it looks like a herd of elephants that's come down, and the older ones kind of patiently providing the younger ones with a chance to drink. So it's interesting, it's quite the drop there. Maybe they're also just standing out and enjoying the breeze, or maybe they're using this spot to check the area out. They don't look like they have been wetting themselves with the water yet. Comes a young bull elephant. Another one. Let's see what's happening there. Maybe you can see it's also like it's getting hot now, so a lot of these animals are coming down to have a drink. But maybe those elephants in the group were just standing there waiting to see what those bull elephants might do before spreading out. I think elephants are quite in tune with other elephants in the area and how they come and go. Especially bulls, as you can see there. You know, bull elephants, even though they don't always have ill intentions, their size, their sheer size and strength make them slightly irritating, especially when they kind of wedge their way right in the middle of the herd like that. You can see, look at that concerned older elephant cow, maybe even the matriarch in this group. And of course, when it's very hot like this, course you wouldn't want any irritation. And interesting, that big elephant there in the middle, you can see the different hues in the color of his skin. So I'm assuming that this elephant covered himself with some of these soils. It's got the concrete in it, or the lime. With a paler color, and then of course afterwards used some of the redder mud further away from this open area near the water. An indication that he's been around today. He's moved quite a bit, or in the last few hours. Just have a look at that. What a view. The hills or mountains here at Madikwe. All these animals in the foreground. That is a decent sized herd of elephant, or more than one. Quite the meeting point, of course, near the water here. Some African shell ducks in the foreground, white-faced whistling ducks. The ever-present Egyptian goose, springbok, zebra. This is like a little bit of heaven right here. Just look at that against the backdrop of those green hills. That's beautiful. You can see some well-worn and used rubbing posts near the water's edge. And that size, arguably some warthog. To have a look, there was a bit of an interaction. Looks like a different herd that's come in. You can see there's some friendliness and attempts to greet, but obviously that tiny little elephant there to the left of that group is very well taken care of there. You can see the trunk just reaching out towards the mother. And she is dropping some dung. The young one is blocking the view, but maybe right on top of the baby's head there. Looked like he was walking straight behind her, or she. Look at the size of that small elephant. Definitely born this season, I'd say, since the rains have started. Of course, a focus point for a herd like this. And all the young females as well as the older females will all be very, very protective over that little elephant. Make sure that it is right in the center of the attention, especially when other elephants move by, like big bull elephants. And of course, interactions around watering holes can provide quite nervous moments for a lot of these herds. Now, while we are looking at this incredible abundance of herds here around Tau, I would like to remind our viewers of two travel opportunities coming up this year. The first one would be into India with Taylor and Suyash, and that'll be taking place in November. This year it will be a group of 6, and you'll be exploring 2 of India's top tiger reserve, Bandhavgarh and Kanha. And they're both known for exceptional wildlife viewing. I've been privileged enough to be to both myself, and I have had unbelievable sightings there. I definitely cannot complain, and the scenery is spectacular. But you'll be staying in the premium jungle lodges, King's Lodge, Kanha Earth Lodge, and it'll be a blend of comfort and immersive nature experiences. Of course, you'll have morning and afternoon game drives. You'll be led by Wild Earth naturalist Taylor McCurdy and Suyash Keshari, and it'll offer you the best chance to see the Bengal tiger and other Indian wildlife. So go to wildearth.travel and check the opportunity out. The other exciting opportunity, of course, is the ultimate rhino conservation safari, and that'll be taking place in September 2025, and you'll be joining Eric and Ben for a 3-night luxurious stay at Kwandwe private game reserve, and of course 40% of the entire trip goes directly into rhino conservation. So your 3-night stay directly contributes towards rhino conservation, and you'll be experiencing a rhino collaring. You'll see the anti-poaching units in action, and then of course Ben Coley will be doing a night sky safari. So the bookings will open on the 7th of Feb, and it'll start at 7 p.m. in Central African time, 12 p.m. in East African time, or you can go to wildearth.travel. 2 amazing opportunities to see some spectacular areas and be a part of some spectacular trips contributing towards conservation. And then of course, it being the 8th already of February 2025, February being the month of Valentine's, I would like to mention that in celebration of Love in the Wild, we will be having an FSC about courtship and animal relations on Valentine's Day. So the 14th of February 2025 from 7:30 p.m. Central African time, Maxine and Eric will be discussing some animal relations and matters regarding courtship in the animal world, and this will be available for the explorers and the YouTube members only. And then another thing I would like to remind our viewers of is the Kids Drive registrations. So from the 29th of January, the Wild Earth Kids Drives is back, and it'll be from a Wednesday to a Friday during the first hour of our sunset safari. And if you are a teacher or a parent, you can head over to wildearth.tv/kids and book your slot. This is incredible, and this is something I always enjoy seeing, is whenever you're at a big watering hole like this, and I know I've mentioned this before, but I find it fascinating, and I like to also pointed out to people, yo, just look at that sight. Beautiful herd of elephants spread out. An array of colors, from the grey around the water's edge to the greenery, back to the grey of the line of the elephant herd, to all the other spread out colors in the background, and then the green hills in the back. But what I wanted to say is, whenever you do have a beautiful view of a large landscape like this, which is rather open around the water, and you have the opportunity to spend time watching it, it's always interesting to note how carefully different groups of animals and species plan their approach to the water. This ingrained acceptance of their space within the natural cycle, taking their time as soon as a gap opens up, heading in to have their drink if it's necessary. Sometimes you might see a little bit of desperation, but of course nature's natural order always prevails, and you'll see the larger elephants, or the larger animals like the elephants, moving in, having their time. As soon as they move away, some of the other groups of animals that might be nearby will come and have a drink. And then you find those that's fortunate enough to be spending a lot of time around the water. They obviously have their set times, which might be slightly different from groups traveling afar. This is quite interesting. That bull elephant was walking at the back, and as this guy approached, he moved away. You saw that little shake of the head there. Wonder what that was about. Just have a look. It's almost like that other elephant is carefully walking around him, interested, checking him out, but not approaching head on. Now let's see, he's still checking the herd out, moving past. I wonder what he's going to do. Maybe he might follow. There's a cow that's piqued his interest. Okay, well, that's probably not the best news for the other elephant. He looked rather a little bit unhappy with the fact that this bigger elephant has moved in. And I think the bigger elephant shook his head just to tell him, more like a, hey, what are you doing? Hanging out here. Penelope Kenyon, you are saying that we need to see the crocs now. I agree. I would love to see the crocs. I haven't spotted them. Maybe I've just been missing them, but I wouldn't mind seeing them. Oh, there's an interesting bird. Quite a bit of Egyptian geese, but there's a African spoonbill in the water. Catherine, you were saying that that bull elephant was massive, and indeed he was. He looked so big, and then I'm actually so surprised that an even bigger one walked in. Elephants can be interesting to judge in terms of their size at a distance. It might be tricky sometimes. And then I've got a question from Roar asking if this transformation at Tau happens annually. Now Roar, I'm assuming you are referring to the transformation to this green, beautiful landscape full of life. In that case, the answer is yes. Indeed it is. Every year we have a cycle, which in the northern part of South Africa and southern Africa mainly goes between 2 different seasons, not 4 as is usual, even though there's still technically 4. It's mainly a dry and a wet season, period when the rain's there and the period where it's very dry. And usually when it's very dry you have everything move off. I'm just having a look, I didn't notice that before, but it looks like a red-billed teal off to the left in the water. It's just there where the one goose has chased the other one. That's quite a nice one for the list. And then I can see a couple of small birds around these lapwings. Now I'm assuming these are their chicks. That's starting to grow up, already brave enough to wander more than 10 centimeters away from the parents. Big step for such a small bird. Quite interesting, quite nice to see. Indeed, quite a bit of Egyptian geese here. Maybe that's why we're not seeing the crocodiles. These guys have teamed up and finally managed to make enough noise to make them move. That's just a joke. But indeed it also seems like there's quite a few male Egyptian geese here, so I can imagine that the competition is quite fierce around these pools, even though there's enough water going around. But from the very green hills of Madikwe, we're going to head down to the Western Cape, where it's a beautiful sunny day, and check out what's happening around Stony Point. And here we have the penguin colony. Just have a look at them, eagerly awaiting drying out. Technically, you can see their wings are slightly open, probably some of them coming back from foraging. Some of these penguins actually travel quite far out to go hunt for fish into the deeper ocean. And often traveling those distances do, of course, affect the energy levels, even though they do get food. Well, hopefully they do. And after a successful hunt, coming back. And very, very thick lining of feathers, and uniquely shaped feathers that provide them with the insulation once they're in the water, and also aid them in the swimming process, having less drag and less buoyancy. Also needs to be maintained. And that happens through extreme or standing in the heat for it to get warm enough for them to actually burn off some of the parasites that might be in and amongst those feathers. Having said that, it also helps them and aids them in their digestion process. And then also the fact that they are penguins and they don't have much to do on the land. So standing around, breathing, looking at the sea seems pretty apt. You can see a few Egyptian geese in the background as well around. Penelope Kenyon, you saying you could do with a dip in the cold ocean, as it's very hot and humid at the KZN coast. I'm sure it is. So I grew up heading towards the south and the western coast of South Africa as a kid. I got so used to the cold water there that the first time I swam in our eastern oceans along KZN's coast, that water was too warm for me. Almost uncomfortably warm. And I know with the humidity on that coast, some days can be quite unbearable. Be sure to drink a lot of water. There's quite a number of these penguins out this afternoon. This is quite good to see. You can see all the washed up bamboo stalks, the dried out bamboo out on the beach. And that's quite interesting to see. It's a reminder of the consistency and the continual processes, natural processes happening in this environment. The waves always going. And the old dying bamboo always gets washed over to the shore. More from the penguins. Let's see who else we have out here on the rocks. Let's see, look at those white stained perches there for the cormorants, usually. Look at that, there we go, quite a number of cormorants. Looks like a white-breasted cormorant that I always see here out in and amongst the other Cape cormorants. Well, it's mostly Cape cormorants. Sometimes tricky to see the clear features on these birds to make sure which other ones are in between. Oh, what a good perch. And I'm sure the sea can get quite rough around here, and occasionally probably do tend to wash over those rocks, but it's a pretty good perch, and it's normally not the case. Amazing views here at Stony Point. You can just see some of the bamboos that's loosened up and drifting. Yeah. Oh, what was that? Was that a cormorant taking a dive or a seal? I'm not too sure. Probably a cormorant. Let's see what else we have out here on the rocks. You can see some of what a beautiful natural tidal pool. And let's see if we have, oh, there we go, some hyrax, some rock hyrax. their usual perch near their usual hole. There we go. Out in the sun. Let's see if you might get comfortable. Oh, there's two. It's getting quite hot. They might actually decide to move back into the shade here, but these guys do like basking out in the sun. Also helps them with that digestive process. Also helps them in maintaining their clean fur. But of course, being a mammal, they do have their limit, and therefore they do seek out the shady spots very effectively, like that guy's doing. Just have a look at that. That is a beautiful example of how to use a tight space of shade very, very effectively while staring down at the rocks. And then there's also a constant shift, because when the one sees the other one taking up a good spot, it wants to move around. So I had a question from Catherine. It's asking if penguins stay here, and if they do, where do they lay their eggs? So quite a good question, Catherine. It's interesting because these penguins are one of the select colonies along our coast where they actually do stay and breed. Now, they do travel away to forage and feed, but they generally stay within only a few kilometers from the coast, but they can travel up and down along it. However, they find this space safe, and therefore they do lay their eggs here and nest here, and they do so out on the rocks. Often the little safe areas provided by some of the nooks within the rockier areas, and they'll sit out and bask in the sun like this. But these penguins use the nearby islands to breed in the rockier part of the coast. You can see there's some bulls opening there, so I'm assuming they're getting quite warm. See, there's one, its bull was open, now it's closed and he's moving towards the water. Maybe that might prompt others. But I think while these penguins wait out here, let's head back to Tau and see if there's other visitors coming down to the water there. From a coastal Egyptian goose to an inland Egyptian goose, You can see some big elephants moving away there in the distance. Look like a big bull. See the zebra out there, a lone wildebeest bull. Doesn't look like there's any worry here currently. Another elephant bull and another one standing at the back. Now, the fact that there's so many elephant bulls coming and going from this area does show that it's definitely a hub. They do come and inspect it. And their water requirements, being such a large animal, their water requirements are quite high. And if they are in the area, they'll definitely come down to the water more regularly. Not just to drink, but also to check out who else is moving through the area. What I do enjoy about the view here at Tau is the fact that you look back in and amongst that tree line there at the back. It's greened up completely. It used to be quite a grey line in the dry season, and now that it's green in the rain season, it provides a perfect barrier, potentially for predators. And that's why we'll find that sometimes general game like the zebra and impala and the wildebeest, they tend to stand out in the open and they face that way. And there are quite a few zebra around. Looks like there's some good food, lots of grass as well. What a beautiful scene. And talking about a beautiful scene, let me mention some beautiful work that Wild Earth has been doing. So there is a new launched Wild Earth Impact Foundation, and it's a non-profit arm that's dedicated to showcasing nature conservation stories that inspire conservation, as well as the human and nature connection. And to learn a little bit more about what we do and how this arm operates, go check it out on the website. Some very, very exciting projects running. And now we've got a good bunch of birds together here. And let's see what we have. I can see a common moorhen. I'm not sure what landed there next to the water. There's some Egyptian geese. The teal is still there. And then a African shelduck. It's a very, very little, very, very busy little spot, this, that's for sure. Eleanor McMahon, you saying that's a spoonbill? Yes, indeed, you are correct. That is a spoonbill, an African spoonbill. I can see two red-knobbed coots in the water there as well. But yeah, well done. African spoonbills are quite interesting birds. It's odd to see just one. Normally you'll see a few together, or sometimes at least two. I guess it's not unheard of. What a peaceful scene. I think let's go see what the scene looks like back at Old Donyo and see if it's just as peaceful that side as well. Very much so. One peaceful, thirsty giraffe. And look at him, so peaceful and nervous at the same time. Oh, maybe not so peaceful. Oh, here comes the big boys. And it looks like these guys have managed to bring along a friend. Now, this is something that's interesting to see here at Old Donyo, is the fact that we have some of the elephants, like the ones that you can tell apart, they come about quite regularly, and the giraffes. So whatever's feeding around the area, when they are here, they'll feed and they'll move back and forth quite regularly between the water and the area that they feed. On a hot day, and of course, it being so close to the tropics, it's quite hot, quite humid, I'm sure. So the water requirements needed will definitely be tried to be met if it's readily available. Let's see if this giraffe will drink with the elephant there. It's a nice big bull, so it might have the confidence. There we go. And yes, there we go. A giraffe and an elephant drinking at the same time. And indeed, that was a thirsty giraffe. Just look at him go. I'm watching the oxpeckers on the back. Every now and again, a different one comes popping up from behind, probably utilizing this time when the giraffe's got its head down to get to those areas where it would have tried and shooed them off while it's got its head up. Like the back end, the inside of the thighs, always an area where lots of ticks and other skin parasites gather as it moves through the bush, so time to utilize it. You can see almost no moisture going in the waist, except a little bit that he squirts out when he lifts his head suddenly like that, but he's licking whatever's around the lips. And that was the oxpecker. Was being a little bit more irritating than usual. But let's see, this giraffe is definitely not done. Now, I can see a whole bunch of critters flying in front of the screen. It's not always possible to identify them, but I can tell indeed that a lot of them are insects of some sorts, and not all of them butterflies. And near the water especially is where you often find flies, biting flies. The scent of the animal that linger around the edge of the water attracts these creatures, and a whole bunch of other things. These animals drink around the water, they could shed or deposit whatever else So you always have flying insects around the water's edge and over the water, and as an animal like a giraffe, usually having its head high up, puts it low down like that near the water, that might be a chance for those critters to also take their chance, especially little biting flies. Joan Mello, you have a beautiful Saturday as well, and thank you for joining in as well. And thanks for wishing all of us here at Wild Earth a beautiful Saturday. It's been indeed this far. This afternoon has been incredible. We've had a very brazen attempt by a young male lion certainly provided a whole bunch of us with some excellent entertainment there. Penelope Kenyon, thank you to you too, and a beautiful Saturday to you. You're saying you especially loved that lion sighting. I'm very happy to hear that, so did I. But having said that, I also liked all our sightings, even if it's just for the beautiful, peaceful scenery like this. Giraffe staring off in the distance over some flat crown acacias and on the horizon with the clouds moving in. What a classical East African landscape. And there he goes, and may he also enjoy his Saturday. So, just before the end of the show, we're going to head back over to Stony Point. Where we have some very relaxed penguins, certainly enjoying their Saturday afternoon. And with this amazing calmness that the waves and the water at the coast of South Africa's Stony Point shows us, I am going to say good afternoon to all our viewers, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We had an incredible afternoon here live at the watering hole, and we'll see you soon. So from all of us here at Wild Earth, goodbye.